Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Nicholas. Thank you for coming on to the Tubing podcast once again. last
My
time we had
pleasure.
you, last time we had you, it was 2020. That was last year.
More like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
uh,
pretty much.
yeah. All right. So last time we talked, I believe you were working on the Mastermind Army, pretty much. How's that been going?
Pretty good, all things considered. We've got a couple of paid groups, several free groups,
Hmm.
and the network within the masterminds are all growing, and that
Hmm.
feels good. And I've started another project called Disbelief Work,
Oh,
and
okay.
I've got multiple projects going on, and that feels good and exciting. So,
Nice. So what is the disbelief? What is that about?
well, basically, I went through this crazy adventure over
Hmm.
the course of the last year where I kind of ran out of options trying to run away from my own internal sense of unworthiness.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I used to try to achieve within my professional career, and the way to be good enough is to be successful and to make money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I found out that that's actually a losing formula. There's no external solution to that internal problem. And so I kind of I kind of went through this chapter of like a month of just like pausing all of my projects. I was
Hmm.
at the time running a sales consulting firm and helping startup founders like document and build out their sales process and hire salespeople. And I was like, shit, I'm not even happy doing this. Like, what do I do from here? Because I thought, okay, I quit working at Toggle, I quit my sales career. Now I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to take everything I learned building up the sales organization for this other company. I'm going to build my own ship and do it myself. And I still wasn't happy. In fact, I was kind of more miserable because I was just like, the thing that I thought would bring me happiness is actually not bringing me the happiness that I had anticipated, and that was my last like arrow in the quiver that I thought I could use to find actual internal peace and happiness, and then that wasn't there. And I was like, shit, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
So,
definitely something.
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, whether or not this is the direction that you thought the call was going to go, this is where
Hey,
it's
no
going.
worries. I've already been thrown completely off.
Yeah. Amazing. So,
Oh.
so so all that happened to me,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, what the hell do I do? It didn't feel or seem like there was really a way out.
Mhm.
And I ultimately, through a weird series of events, I moved to Austin and
Mhm.
I got in touch with some people who introduced me to a company that specifically helps high achievers and entrepreneurs fix their mindset with a couple of new techniques and new modalities. I learned how to do what they were doing, and it permanently shifted in my brain and let me let go of ideas like I'm not good enough, I don't deserve success, I'm
Mhm.
not lovable, like all of these beliefs that were lingering in my head as a function of the trauma that I experienced when I was a kid
Right.
that I could never functionally get away from because they were like programs that were running in the background of my mind that was making me fucked up and miserable.
Yeah, that'll do it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like believing that fucking I can't trust myself and I don't deserve love or happiness or success. I was kind of unhappy no matter what I tried to do in the professional realm to cover up over that.
Mhm.
So I found out that you can actually release all of those things very easily through a rational conversation framework. And I call that framework disbelief work.
Okay.
It's it's showing the mind you take back something like I'm not good enough, which millions and millions of people experience.
Right.
You discover what age, when did you first realize that that was true?
Mhm.
It was probably really super young.
Yeah.
For me, it was like 4 years old. I'm like looking at my dad, and I'm like giving him something. I don't even remember what it was because I was so young. I was giving him something that I thought would make him happy, and he got super mad at me. He swore at me, and he slammed the door in my face and left me alone in his office.
Okay.
And I go, holy shit, that's how I know I'm not good enough because this happened. I tried to do something good and it
Mhm.
wasn't enough for him. Therefore, I'm not good enough. And then from that moment, the next 2 decades, that was the impression that I was living under. So once you've tied the original source of the belief back to that source trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you can start to reframe that memory. And that basically shifts it so that your brain knows that that's not the only way to look at it.
Right, kind of figuring out there's a different perspective to it that you didn't originally see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But then what's fascinating is that that's usually where people stop. They go, okay, now I know it's not true, so great. And you go on about your life.
Mm-hmm.
But then the problem is it still feels true,
Okay.
right? For many people, you rationally reframe it and still feels shitty when you think
Right.
about it. Yeah. So then what these people discovered is actually very cool, is that when you go back and you invite someone to ask, like, okay, so what did you actually feel? How do you know that you felt not good enough? Like, what is that experience like? You go, oh, I felt tightness and tension in my chest, or I felt
Mm-hmm.
a flushness over my face, or I felt like sad and scared, and I feel my shoulders hunching in, or some combination of these typical body language signals.
Right.
But those are all actually just physiological sensations in the body.
Okay.
None of those sensations mean that the person isn't good enough. And the way that you know that's true is like if you were to ask, all right, so if a Cambodian kid was about to go sing opera in front of an audience of people and he was really nervous and he felt the exact same tension in his chest and he was nervous and so his shoulders were clenching in and he felt a hot flash in his face because he's about to sing in front of 10,000 people. He feels the exact same physiological sensations. Does it mean that he's not good enough? It's
Right.
like,
I used to have something kind of similar when I used to do acting as a child. I often, like, especially during when I was doing theater work, a lot of times
mm,
beforehand, it felt like I was going to throw up before going on stage. That was kind of that thing where you had the panic attacks and such. Yeah.
yeah, right. And it's like those emotions are trying to send your body signals that there's some stressor in the environment that needs
Mm-hmm.
to be dealt with.
Right.
And your emotions were trying to share some useful information with you. But that's all, there's no, any meaning beyond that is actually made up
Mm-hmm.
in the mind. So you take someone, you reframe the source trauma that caused them to believe that they're not good enough, then you help them realize that they never at any point either saw any proof that they're not good enough and they never felt not good enough, and that not good enough is actually not a human emotion at all.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because beliefs aren't emotions. Beliefs a concept. It's an idea. You can't feel an idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's actually kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about this is that if you ever experience it, it's beautiful. You go through it in that order.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who carried around, I'm not good enough, and if they say it out loud, they would feel those physiological sensations in their body. They would feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Even if rationally they're like, I get personal development, I know I'm not good enough or whatever. If you say, I'm a strawberry pie, you don't feel anything,
Right.
right? Yeah. So once you go through that step by step by step, I'm not good enough becomes the exact same thing as saying, I am strawberry pie. And it's gone.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I kind of think about it a little bit, that kind of reminds me of a story. So back when I was in Boy Scouts a long time ago, I did a camp out and camp Fire Mountain. I think that was what the campsite was called, and there was this large climbing course that we got to do.
Mm.
Apparently, at the time, I was absolutely terrified of heights for some reason. So trying to climb a vertical equipment that's constantly shaking and moving scared the heck out of me. But
Yeah.
at the time, it was more I was more ticked off at myself that I was panicking, like having a panic attack, kind of. And so, like, I would keep going, but I'd keep trying until I physically couldn't do it anymore. So I think that's kind of something that stuck with me was
Huh.
I don't so much as get depressed or think of myself as like worthless and stuff. I get
Hmm.
ticked off that I'm feeling that certain way. And now I've just kind of had that mindset where it's like I can learn anything, I can go forth, I can do whatever I want. It's gonna hurt, sure, but in the long run, it's gonna work out just fine. Because go to the gym now, and I'm much stronger than I was a long time ago. So
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's like you can use the first impulse to quit as fuel and motivation
Hmm.
to continue.
Yeah. Use spite to your advantage. That's pretty much what that is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what other projects have you been working on? What else has been going on?
Dude, it's mainly been Mastermind Army and that.
Hmm.
You call a project like basically something else that's really been beautiful and important to me over the last couple of months has been like deepening and improving my relationship with my dad.
Oh, nice. What have you been doing? What's that one? I'm curious.
Yeah, basically we started going on walks in the morning
There
every
you
single
go.
day and calling each other up on the phone,
Hmm.
and I'm just kind of like asking about his life. And it's the most connection, the most sincere connection that I've had with my dad pretty much in my entire life.
That's pretty good. That's really good, especially coming
Yeah.
from that time when you were a 4 year old and Dad slammed the door in the face. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. That was a one of, I don't know, 10,000 similar types of experiences growing up. And so I didn't think when I was a teenager that I would have a healthy relationship with my
Right.
dad when I was an adult. Um, it turns out that's not the case. You know, it's
Yeah.
just quite beautiful. So,
Yeah. As time goes on, you can improve and you can build a healthy relationship. It's definitely possible. You don't have to close every single door, but yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, Nicholas. Good job, mate.
collapse.
Claps. Do some ASL.
Yeah,
We'll do
silly.
some clapping in ASL. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah. That's thank you because clapping actually triggers me, so I prefer snaps because
Yeah.
I'm,
I
I'm fucking with you.
I grew up with deaf family members, so this was probably the best way to do any clapping whatsoever in my household for the
Well,
longest
well,
time.
that motion in particular, I've always found interesting because, like, I don't know about other people, but when I do this, I almost like feel like the energy like building up in
Hmm.
all of my fingertips and in my hands,
Yeah.
and it's like a much more powerful, energetic experience than just clapping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
clapping is
it
just like you're sending all that energy out. This is like you're building it up in your hand.
Yeah, it's just like really tingly. I don't know.
Yeah, so like
Yeah. It's gonna fly off any moment now. There we go.
yeah, shoot a little fucking imaginary energy ball out in the universe.
Yeah. Man, I am very. I last year I planned like so much ahead. I had like a whole list of questions. This year I'm just like, all right, we're gonna be improv and see what happens.
I dig it. I dig it. I
Yeah.
think that that's a great way to go. And
Hmm.
I didn't expect to start the conversation talking about new projects and stuff. So that's great that we were able to talk about that. But
Yeah.
any other topic that you want to talk about, man? I'm here.
Oh man. Well, I think I got something kind of interesting. So
Hmm,
one of the things that I'm trying to figure out is starting for a company for the first time, starting my first business, because I
there you go.
recently have been working with Stupid Raisins and learning how to build my own online storefronts and so forth and market them.
Cool.
And I recently just got let go from Stupid Raisins
Hmm.
due to some financial problems on their part.
Hmm.
And so now I'm in this weird spot where I'm trying to decide, all right, do I go and try and find another job at this time, or do I take that chance of starting my own company doing something else? So, at
How
that
old are you?
weird point.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
Roger that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the very first company that I started, I was 16 doing yard work.
Okay.
Yeah.
What number of business would this be for you if you were to do it? Two, three, four?
This would technically be the second one.
Great. Okay. That's
Yeah.
amazing. You're going to be in a good spot. So I can give you a heuristic that I use to evaluate a decision like this, if that would be helpful.
Hmm.
Most entrepreneurs don't find like that incredible, like, fuck yeah, golden ticket, or even like that really nice, respectable, like I'm making multiple six figures, paying myself and doing exceptionally well through my own business until they've started multiple businesses and
Right.
failed and started and failed and started and failed. The way I look at it is the more reps I get in while I'm in my 20s, the exponentially better off I'll be in my 30s.
Hmm.
If I wait until I'm 30 to start a business, it's hypothetically possible that as a high earner, I could have saved up half a million to $1 million and have a lot of seed capital to go and try and build something.
Hmm.
and I could build up a lot of business acumen by working for other people for some period of time. But if even if that's the case, that I have that $500,000 and all that business acumen working for other people, I would view myself at a disadvantage to a 30-year-old who, when he was 21, started an e-commerce store and made 5 or 6,000 bucks in profit, but then ultimately decided that it wasn't what he wanted to do, and then went and like worked in another role for a couple of years, and then quit that, and then started some other business doing something like services that was all interesting to him at the time,
Hmm.
and then made $37,000 from that business, and then decided to shut it down, and then went and did something else and made $117,000 from that business, and then decided to shut it down. By the time he reaches his 30s, he only has $100,000 in seed capital, but he has 3 years of consecutive entrepreneurial experience. He has the experience of hiring freelancers and building out a team and delegating tasks and managing his own schedule and all of the soft skills and intelligence that goes into being an entrepreneur and business owner. That's the guy who, when he's 30, starts the thing that then within 2 years' time is cash flowing and he's fucking killing it and he's
Right.
super happy and he's set.
Okay. Yeah. Because right now, what I've been working on as of this past year, every week I've been writing a short story to put together into my own book. Because the idea being that next year, I started up a couple small online stores selling products, selling my own book, selling some paracord crafts. That's the other thing that I was thinking about, just to start getting a secondary income going
Hmm.
for these types of moments where I'm suddenly without a job and I have an income at the very least. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in life right now.
No, it's a good spot to be. If you're looking at it from a vantage point of I just want to create a second stream of income,
Hmm.
keep it low stakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah,
Like what would be the idealized outcome of that for next year? We're heading into a new year.
I would say the ideal situation for, let's say I start up both of those two storefronts, the one for the book and then one for the paracord crafts. I would say for the book, I'd want to be making $500 revenue. That's that covers my costs essentially, and then I make a little bit off that. Same thing with the paracord, but the paracord primarily being that I want to be able to go and travel the United States a bit, and go to conventions, go to like different shows and stuff, and set up a vendor stand selling these paracords, and then also have an online store bringing in orders as well. That's kind of the
Mhm.
goal for that, so I can kind of travel, meet people, see what states there are out here, and what kind of places there are to move to. Because as you can't see in the green screen right now, I still live at my family's farm. I'm 21. I still live at my family's farm, and the whole plan for next year was getting my own house, but I just had lost my job, so
Mhm.
everything's kind of changed all of a sudden, literally just this past week. So yeah.
And why did you want your own house?
Well, primarily to get away from my family and just kind of focus on my own projects more than anything.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the time, I often had this whenever I was sitting here working, was I would have somebody come in and they would start talking with me and or start asking me to go do stuff. And for me, it was a little bit annoying, I would say, because it just like stressed me out because I suddenly had to go focus on something else, and if I didn't go do that, then I would get yelled at somebody or I would mess up something with whatever I was working on.
Got it.
So
So you didn't mean like go buy a house. You meant get your own place.
yeah, get my own place. I mean, and also I wanted to purchase my own house because I didn't want to go rent out and not have my own property, and then I can go purchase another house and rent that out or something like that. That's kind of the
Hmm.
the long term goal there.
Yeah, do some house hacking,
Yeah.
get a roommate,
Mhm.
like have your mortgage paid off,
Yeah,
you know,
or
et
like
cetera,
get
et
a
cetera.
tiny house after purchasing like the big house, rent out the big house, live in the tiny house, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can respect that. That's a cool idea.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be very key for your like your personal and emotional development.
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of the main thing for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's stifling. To I saw a cool video actually recently where This guy bought a giant birdhouse
Mm-hmm.
and he filmed with a time lapse um, this bird discovering the birdhouse, building a nest, laying the eggs, going out foraging, coming back, feeding the chicks. The chicks get bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually, the chicks are indistinguishable from the mom. They're the same size. They look identical, and you could see them at different points. They were getting so fucking restless. They were just like flapping their wings and
Mm-hmm.
like floating inside of the birdhouse and just like made this like hilarious sound, and it just looked absurd. That's kind of what people who are in their 20s are doing
Mm-hmm.
when they still live at home.
Yeah.
They're getting restless. They're flapping their wings all over the place. They have the ability to just go fly, forage their own food, and like win life.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just like inside of this little home, like chaotically expending their energy without going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I would highly support you in getting the fuck out.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was
Yeah.
actually kind of the other reason why I joined Praxis a couple of years ago, was to try and get myself out, get that job, that first long-term job, and move out and get that experience. But as we all know, COVID hit, so I ended up staying home and I found a remote job. So, kind of how that turned out.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, during COVID I was also working a remote job. I got the remote job when remote jobs were cool,
Mm-hmm.
like before it became like the normal.
Right.
I was working at Toggle, and it was this wild saga of my girlfriend at the time
Mm-hmm.
ended up like moving in with me.
Whew.
Basically because her flight back home was canceled by all the lockdowns.
Oh no.
So I had this like wild like live-in like pandemic partner, which was like a beautiful and very memorable experience, but then also those challenges that are associated with that. And it's just like I look very fondly back on that entire life chapter. It was quite something.
I bet. I don't know what else to say at this point.
Yeah,
I'd rather be
all good,
honest
man.
and say I don't know what I'm doing and go from there. uh,
You know, radical honesty in the moment is one of the best like universal principles to follow in your relationships.
yeah, yeah, I can agree to that. Yeah. Then at the very least, you know when you're messing up. At least people know. You're being honest about it. Yeah.
Well, it's like you didn't say I'm messing up. You
True.
said I don't know what to say in response to that.
Yeah, because yeah,
That's a
yeah,
very honest statement.
yeah, because for
Yeah,
me,
and there's no good.
oh yeah, for me, I haven't had much success when it comes to dating, so that's outside my wheelhouse.
Oh, I see. That
Hmm.
makes sense. Okay, so but what's fascinating about that? Let's break that interaction down. I say something that you can't relate to, and you tell me I don't know what to say in response to that, and that immediately picks the conversation back up. The topic then shifts to your emotional honesty, expressing what is actually happening for you in the moment, which is a much more real connection than trying to intellectually grasp something that you don't emotionally relate to and making some comment like, oh, gee, that must have been crazy
Right.
or something like
'Cause,
that, right?
yeah, when you start saying it like that, it just sounds dishonest. I guess. Kind of what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. The awkward silence of the praxis calls that we all know and love. Oh man.
You know, it's funny is if you ever get any sales experience, you no longer become bothered by silence.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. For me, it was I mostly did acting, so that's where most of it came from. I never really did sales too much. It was
Mm-hmm.
never really hit me very well in that one. Didn't really have very good
Mm.
experiences doing sales. Yeah.
Well, the acting bit is interesting. Like silence during acting means that you're failing,
Hmm.
typically,
Yes.
unless it's intentionally giving an awkward pause to emphasize a moment that's funny or tense.
Hmm.
But within the context of a sales conversation, strategic pausing is actually like some of the most powerful moments of a conversation
Mm.
because it's a test of the rapport of the conversation. And whoever speaks first, if you name your price, like, yeah, it's $1,000 to work with me, and you get to have 2 sessions, and we'll work through these problems together. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like the person says, okay. And then, so if I wanted to do that, what would we do? And then you move forward from
Right,
there.
and then you kind of
You're
move
you're
forward
you're
from there. Okay.
you're allowing them to process the experience through the
Interesting.
tension.
I like that. That's cool.
Yep. It's also an incredibly important tool whenever you make an important declaration
Hmm.
to a potential partner, a business partner, etc. It's important to say like here's what is going to happen
Hmm.
and then shut up.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually kind of useful for me because I so literally a couple days after I just got let go from Stupid Raisins, I got a text message from one of my old yard work clients saying, "Hey Bryce, we are looking for a marketing specialist to help us out with our video game cafe, basically one of those stores that you would go to, pay them a little bit of money and you could play games for a few hours."
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, going to be talking with him and his co-founder in terms of trying to figure out if working for this startup will be good for me or not. So that's kind of good to know.
Hmm. And if you don't have experience doing it, I wouldn't force it on that conversation.
Right.
Just be your authentic self, and that'll serve you 1,000 times better than trying to use a tactic.
Yeah.
But one example of one example of using that maybe in like an interview process would be like allowing allowing them to answer one of your questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they seem to have finished their answer, sitting in silence a little bit longer
Okay.
and see if they volunteer any additional information.
Okay.
And you don't have to do that, but if you this is where you get to tap into your intuition, and once you have experienced this several times, then you
Mm-hmm.
can start just incorporating it as a strategic tool to understand people better. So let's imagine that you said like, is the business like financially successful, is it thriving? And they go, oh yeah, it's going well. Yeah, it's we're having a little bit of we've been in the red for the last couple of months, but in general, like we're cash flow positive for 2021.
Yep. And that's where that little extra came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
See what I
actually.
mean?
Yeah. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah. Cool. So, one thing I actually really wanted to ask you about, and since you mentioned it earlier, you
Mhm.
just moved out to Austin, Texas, right?
Yep, just over a year ago, August 15th, 2020.
Okay. How are you liking out there? How are you liking out in Austin, Texas?
Best decision, best decision I ever made to move out here. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Like, first of all, the area that I live in
Mm-hmm.
is like there's like a Chinatown entire shopping mall like within 2 minutes of where I live, and over a dozen different places to get pho.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Pho is
it's
like the
unfair.
one thing I love the most when it comes to like food.
Yeah, yeah, it's incomparable. It's better than ramen. Sorry, ramen guys. Um, so there's that, but that's not why Austin's amazing. Austin's amazing because it's a gravity well vortex for highly conscious and interesting people,
Hmm.
and it's sucking everyone that's cool in. And just like getting cooler and cooler all the time. And
Oh man.
the if you have a weird eclectic series of interests, you're like, I really like this obscure esport and crypto and startups.
Okay.
There's so many people that are smack dab in the middle of whatever your weird Venn diagram of interests are. You're like, well, I like paddle boarding and salsa dancing and uh I don't know, and libertarianism. Like,
Sure. Let's go
yeah,
with that. Yeah.
yeah. You'd be able to start a salsa dance libertarian event here in Austin and have a dozen people show up.
That is amazing. Cause,
Yeah,
yeah, one of the things I was considering was potentially moving out to Texas, just a little bit south of Austin. I was thinking of San Marcos, that
it's a
small
good
town
idea.
that's out there, because it's just like
Yeah,
within an hour's drive.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's
rent
good
will
to know.
also be half.
Yes, yes. Mainly, but I was mainly looking at the housing prices were much cheaper than here in Washington.
Oh yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
can get some living for like a couple $100,000 down there.
Oh yeah. Here in Washington, if you wanted to get something that was like bare bones, kind of do a little fixer upper, 300,000, easy. Can't
Yeah,
afford that.
no,
Yeah.
no. In Austin, that's 600.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Housing prices are not fun these days. Not at all.
that's what happens when you print 40% of all the dollars that have ever been made over the last 18 months.
Yeah. Inflation is so much fun. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Turns out consumer inflation, like the price of rice
Right.
and, Coca-Cola, there's different there's different inflation rates for different baskets of commodities and assets.
Hmm.
So the S&P 500 historically has had about an 8% inflation rate.
Right.
It's appreciated in dollar denominated value by about 8% a year.
Okay.
Whereas like food and water, like stuff that people need to survive, has historically been increasing at about 2% per year,
Right.
which is low enough to fall under the radar of most people's perception. But we just hit a new paradigm where the Fed is going to continuously be printing trillions and trillions of new dollars every single year. And that consumer level inflation rate is probably going to jump between 10% on average year over year.
Oh boy.
So so that means if you have cash in a bank account, you'll lose half of your wealth in 7 years.
That's fun. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is the value of assets exploding? Well, because cash is literally on fire, losing 10% a year.
Yeah.
So you have to buy businesses and assets that can either produce cash flows that appreciate at more than 10% a year,
Right.
or assets whose valuations appreciate at more than 10% a year.
Okay. Yeah, because if you go any lower than that, you're going to be losing money at that rate.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's stocks,
Hmm.
that's real estate, crypto, trophy assets like Da Vinci paintings, but that's like at the like crazy $100 million level.
Yeah, that's when that's when you've already finished making billions and
Yeah,
billions of dollars. That's when you just like, oh, there's pocket change right there at that rate. Yeah.
yeah. I'll get another Da Vinci. Yeah.
Oh, is that the art that we got behind you today? Oh.
No, this is my own photography.
Oh, nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm just starting to learn how to do drawing and painting as of late. Still picking up on that a bit. I just made a digital artwork recently, and I
Cool.
went to a convention. I have a funny story actually. Um,
Hmm.
so I went to a convention out in Seattle. it was kind of the end of the day. I was getting ready to go home. I decided to check out their silent auction, and they had different art pieces for sale that they were going to donate a portion to charity. I'm like, all right, cool. Found one that I liked. I put $300 down on it because I've been to one of these before, and I know that people will usually put a lot of money on the arts. And go home, wake up the next morning. I don't quite remember. Did I write down $300, $500? I don't quite remember. And I'll go double check it when I get up there to the con in the morning. I go up there, I go look at the papers that have all the information on them. I noticed that there's a new line at the bottom of each one. If you reach X amount, then you purchase the painting outright. I'm like, all right, cool. Oh, there's one that's already finished. There's one that's already been sold for $500. That's cool. Oh, wait a minute. That's my number on there. I just put it down for $500, not $300.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I now have a $500 painting in my room, and I now have $500 to take off my taxes for this year. So there we go.
Nice.
There's my blunder. This is my blunder of 2021.
That's
but it's worth
man.
it. It's worth it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. That's a good experience to have.
Yeah.
I think what's the most I've ever paid for a piece of art? I think I got a really fucking cool painting for like $50.
Ooh,
and everything else I've just been getting lucky and randomly gifted. Like I have a cool hand carved wooden fish that I got in Belize, and it was like the equivalent of like $12.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, all my art isn't expensive for whatever reason.
A lot of the stuff that I have, either I made it myself or somebody gifted it to me, and then I only have like 2 pieces in my entire room that I paid for originally. That was because they were for silent auctions at charity events. That was pretty much it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Someone's happy.
Yes, apparently my parents are watching football.
Sports ball.
Woohoo!
We scored.
The one thing that I'm not too crazy about.
Yeah. I've always found it interesting that people love sports ball so much.
Sports ball. I like the nickname that you gave.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, Nicholas, we are already over time, and I don't want to hold you up too much in your day. So thank you, my friend, for coming in onto the show today. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you. It's always fun talking with you, my friend.
Likewise, Bryce. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was very fun. Have a great rest of the weekend. Talk soon.
You as well. Is there anything that you want to put out for the podcast? Any like links or anything that you want me to put out for you?
Yeah. If you want to change your mental health forever, go to disbelief.work. If you want to join a mastermind group and be surrounded by other investors and entrepreneurs who are committed to your success, go to mastermind.army.
There we go. All right. And thank you to everybody else who's been watching the show today. It's a pleasure, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
All right.